So it's a pleasure to have you with us, guys, and it looks like it's the usual suspects, and we're gonna have a lovely evening with the Sirians, I suppose. And if you could then ask one question, and you're welcome to answer follow-ups. And then yes, exactly. If YouTube is on, then remember to mute it. And otherwise, I will just say we live in tricky times, but let us hope that everything will settle down and we'll have a nice 2021 at least. So with no further ado, enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you on the other side. Yes, 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 yes. It is Unglungatoq. I come as a representative of that race of star beings you know as the Sirians. From that point in time where I'm talking to you, we have already transformed ourselves into beams of light. And that is why you may sense that our energy is coming through so clearly for so many of you, because our relationship to Earth has been a long one, and we have guided and are guiding many races and species down here as they ascend and try to find their way back to remembering who they are. We have a small message for you before we begin answering your questions. And sticking to these nautical images that we have been transmitting to this vessel the entire day, we will call this transmission or this message we deliver to you Shiver Me Timbers. You know, this hails from the image of a sailboat lost on sea. And when the winds get too stormy, you may have to trim the sails and just go wherever the currents of the ocean they want to take you. This is what we encourage you to do metaphorically in your lives. You may see that the currents blowing around you are simply too powerful to carry you anywhere. And so it can be better to weather the storm by trimming your sails and then letting the currents take you to a safer, distant shore. That shore awaits you. We are already there, waiting with you, and we look very much forward to meeting you there. Know our vibration, our guidance is always ready for you, and we work with you, especially in those watery ways that your veins flow life current through your biological system. We love you very much, and it is, we remind all of you, a very delightful experience for us to be able to have these clear communications and interactions with you. So for the energy you offer this exchange, and for the receptive lovingness with which you heed our words, we thank you already. We thank you so much, human beings. We are so proud of you, and know that the spiral that you find yourself in is becoming more concentrated. And it may seem as if the maelstrom is pulling you down to the bottom, but it is actually a centrifugal process that is allowing for something to arise from the bottom and into your hearts that you will be able to hold there and live your lives by in knowing loving guidance. With that message, I, Unglungatoq, a representative of the Sirian collective, residing with my consciousness now in the ninth dimension, and bringing to you my entire species wisdom and love. Thank you. Is anyone willing to come forward and allow us to bless them and answer their question?
Okay, hello. Sailesh over here.
Yes, pleasure.
Okay, I think Wendy wants to ask the question first. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, thank you. We are quite well. How are you, Wendy?
It's an honor, and I'm very excited to meet with you and connect with you. I feel your loving, unconditional love energy. It's
Yes,
all over my whole beingness. And I also have my friend here, Raphael. He don't speak English, so his question I'll translate, uh, and he give permission to connect to his energy.
yes. And
Um,
and even though he doesn't understand the words, he can still open his heart to his energy, and we feel that he is present with us here too. And we thank both him and you for being here
thank
with
you,
us.
thank you. Um, um, I understand that in this transmission today, you would bless us with with healing,
Yes,
uh, and so I would like to start with Raphael. That's his name,
yes,
Raphael, and he had an experience last year, and that's the question that he has. He'd been through an accident before, and right now he's very skinny. He lost a lot of weight after something strange that happened to him. He was explaining to me that in New York, he was feeling like a pain uh, in the lower right side, and someone said that might be the appendix, and to go to the hospital, which he did. But something strange happened there, and that they rushed him. They did like a assessment, but it wasn't the appendix. But they did not tell him it was not the appendix. But they said that they needed to do a surgery. So, but the following day, so he went home and he went back to the hospital to the procedure, but he has the limitation of the language, so he didn't understand really what was going on. The only thing he knows is that when he went the next day for the surgery, they took him to the seventh floor, and the one who was pushing the bed to take him there, he said that he was screwed. So he was like, uh, what's going on? And the thing is that I when you see the scar of the surgery, is not in the area of the where you do for appendix, and they have him there. They were putting, they placed something in his penis. It was so weird, and they keep him for a week, and at night they were putting some injecting something in his brain, and so he don't know what happened. He don't know uh, what exactly happened, so he want to know. And after that, he's deteriorate his health. He started to lose so much weight that, you know with his friends and family didn't even recognize him. So he want to know if there's a way, if if he was used for a experiment, or he was adopted, or what was happening.
yes. Our consolation to him, our love and our healing. We sense that it is quite hard for him to be in this situation, and we understand why. We will console him first by saying that much of his weight loss stems more from the mental trauma or the sense of that strong traumatic experience he's had, instead of it actually stemming from physical side effects of the procedures. So that means that he's actually able to gain some of the weight back by allowing himself to eat comfort foods. And we sense in his case, simply allowing himself to ingest sugar and fat and those things that actually are very calming to the human nervous system once it has had this type of trauma. So that is a type of direct dietary advice.
Okay.
We do sense that what happened to him was an infringement upon his physical integrity, that something else was going on. We sense there are certain agendas performed by the people who took him, and we do sense this energy of him being taken. This disease or this pain he was experiencing in his abdomen, it had actually more to do with, we're getting something in his liver. So there was a type of problem with his processing of poisons or toxins already. And so they've actually discovered that they perceived him to be already sort of a terminal case. And therefore, he was recruited into this experiment. And this experiment actually, it was meant to see if they could circumvent some of these toxic processes by, this is very, very strange, and you must know that we are reading in energetics and the channel is not medically trained, so therefore it's quite difficult to translate some of these images to him in direct language. But what we are sensing is that they felt, you speak of something happening to his penis, and it was a type of sterilization implant that was taken upon him, along with a type of implant in his mind. And we will actually assure him that this implant, so the reason something was done to his sexual organs was because they didn't want to, the processes that were installed in his brain through that implant, they wanted to make sure that it didn't transfer into genetic code and then got loose, much as you would prefer, for instance, genetically modified genetics not to mix in with plants that are natural, so to speak. But what happened in this brain implant was, it was actually, and we know, of course, this was done against his will, so it feels like a terrible infringement, but it is actually meant to try to improve that condition. And so what they're doing is they're essentially beaming frequencies into his body without consent, or into his main nervous system. And in this and that's also why it's been hard for him to accommodate this, because his entire nervous system is somehow slightly electrified or feels slightly stressed out, and this makes it hard for him to ingest foodstuffs. And we know it's very paranoid. It's very paranoia inducing to receive this information, but there is a way that he can neutralize this signal. And we would know that your energy signal and your power as creators far exceeds whatever you're able to do with any technologies that you can do with the human brain. So he is able to neutralize this. And the easiest way is simply to use that skull vibration. And the most intense way of it is known as the humming bee, where you close off almost all the orifices of the mouth, except for leaving leaving the nose a little open, and then you do the humming noise. But you can also just vibrate with closed mouth and the sound M. And then focusing on releasing that vibration into the brainstem and into the brain area, and that will actually begin to overpower that energy field and will heal him slightly. And then again, if he can put himself on a regimen of fatty foods, that will also help him, because it will help isolate and insulate his body from some of these tensions. So we would console him by saying that this is, from a spiritual perspective, something that he has manifested and he is able to overcome it. But we know that it is very trying, and we also extend our love and our support to him, and know that we have already blessed him in this day with a slight modulation of his energy field. So he will perhaps experience it as more easy for him to swallow and just make that swallowing motion and relax in his stomach. And that is a process that he can focus on, and then it will grow. We will help him with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
He,
much.
he said thank you as well.
Yes, our blessings to him.
Yes. Well, since I'll use the opportunity to also then, I would like if you could bless me with, I would like to know if my condition that I always have believed that we are capable to heal ourselves. And that's something that in my heart, I have to master. And I've been focusing on accomplish that skill of self-healing. And I know there's many new medical science and in healing with stem cells, and so all they've been perfecting the technique actually with more directing the vibration frequencies, and so it targets directly to a specific organ. And now they are able to uh, kind of give the code to restore the organ, the specific organ. I know about that new therapy, but I know and I feel it in my being that we were created that we could heal ourselves with from our own body. And that's something that I think that I would like to see if I am able to do so for some of my personal condition.
Yes, we would almost ask you if you have a question for us, Wendy, because we would simply allow you to feel that affirmation that we offer you, that this is a manifestation of what you are saying and what you are already feeling, and know that this energy of the stem cells and matching that frequency, it is very akin to how multidimensional beings function. That is to say, we understand how frequency essentially relates and shapes matter, and therefore we are able to, in that sense, manipulate or change matter. And that is what is happening to you as you are becoming a multidimensional being and you are waking up to this belief. It is that you know that you can heal yourself, you can change your reality, and you can use these things in the outer world, in a sense, permission slips, but in another sense, also powerful technologies, things that you have created and have understood more fully about the way the world operates, and then makes you able to change yourself and open yourself to new healings and healing modalities. And we are offering you this blessing, and we would like to already, sense you know that we know that you sense that we are opening your energy field, and we thank you for allowing us to mold it open. but we would also like to extend a prayer to you. Know that our language, when translated, and we do not speak it anymore, we have developed other means of communication, but it is similar to that type of echolation practiced by your cetaceans, and therefore we offer you this prayer. From your middle toes, you feel a slight current. Notice in that joint sitting there in the middle of your feet,
Yes.
lovingly carrying you there. Notice from that joint arises an energy that upholds you always, a supportive energy that is present not only there, but in all your joints, in all your cells, in all your vibrational radiance and glory. There is something that is sustained, that is sustainable, that keeps on going. And that thing, it is you in your very essence. You are that upholding energy, and you offer so much love to those things that you come in contact with. You do not notice it because it is your nature, and so it is living within you in every living moment. That is our blessing to you, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you. I am
Thank you.
honored. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
Love,
love to you. And then
love to you.
we will ask, is someone else looking for our guidance this day? We will be happy to offer it.
Laura, would you like to go? Okay, I have a question from Kevin Wickhart
Yes.
from YouTube. He says, I am very interested in the enclaves that will be set up for the hybrid children, meaning the Yael.
Yes.
Certain spots in the US have been confirmed by Bashar, such as Hawaii and Sedona, which will be the areas that the hybrids will utilize to acclimate. I am wondering if you could touch on if there is any possibility of an enclave in Colorado, and what in general these enclaves will look like.
Yes. This is an interesting question. We would remind you in many ways that the hybrid program is, even though you have approached it greatly in your vibration, it is still functioning on a type of alternate timeline that is accelerated. And right now, as you may have noticed in your personal experience, you are all both individually and collectively suffering, or at least trying to readjust to that accelerated timeline pattern. So, what you may have noticed in all of your lives is the acceleration of events, of energetic changes, of experiences and revelations. And this goes along with that acceleration. So, you will have to come to a point where the frequency of your lived experience becomes matched with that of the hybrid program in order for it to manifest extensively on Earth. And this is happening. And it is, of course, happening because such beings, such as Bashar or other races, such as the Yael that spring off from the hybrid program, they have been working to alter your course into their direction, so to speak. And they're a very loving, they're a very loving entity. So why wouldn't you go there? But that is to say that when you point to states such as Sedona, Arizona, notice what we believe has also been revealed through this channel, by those aliens that present themselves as the gray aliens, those that were the initiators of the hybrid program. What they have explained is that they actually often appear in deserts, such as, for instance, in Roswell, New Mexico, or other places on this planet, because it is very conducive to their skin and their sense of breathing in this density, that they will be in such a dry environment. And therefore, we do see enclaves being set up in Colorado on some of these timelines. But it all depends on, you could say, the fate or of how the first enclaves will proceed. These enclaves will look, you could think of it perhaps somewhat as monasteries or closer to the ancient city-state. So a unit of a few thousand peoples, mostly human beings, but aligned with communication and dedicating a lot of their resources and technology to bringing in contact and exploring the technologies that will be revealed to them by those other species participating in the hybrid program. We see this beginning approximately with the current energies in 15 years, though in that area you speak of, as you may notice, there is a lot of fluctuation in energy. And so the die are also being cast, and it is quite uncertain exactly when things will stabilize to a degree in some areas where people will begin to align with these energies and types of living. But 15 years is the number we will give. And then in those most likely timelines we see of the Colorado establishment, it will be in approximately 27 to 35 years. Yes, and we thank you for allowing yourself to progress in that direction, and know that there are many eager entities in the hybrid program right now having a sort of party in hyperspace and showing us all the celebratory trappings and preparations they are making for furthering this contact with your species. We thank you for that question, and we bless the questioner and the asker.
Anyone from the Zoom room want to go ahead?
I'll go if Laura's not. Hello and thank you.
Hello and thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question.
May we ask your name, dear one? We know it through the channel, but it is nice for us to hear you say it.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kate.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you, Kate. And I am Unglungatoq. We are so happy to interact with you this day.
And I am happy to interact with you. Thank you. I've been told that I'm speaking of galactic history here for a moment and then have a few questions. I have been told that before the Lyran Wars, before the planet was destroyed, a lot of us Lyrans came to Sirius, where we were adopted, let's call it that, and allowed to live there comfortably. I'm wondering if you could share some of that happening with us, and then I have a few questions after that.
Yes. This was quite late in our history, which meant that our planet, Unglungatoq, it circles that star you know as the dog star. It has quite volatile energies, for as you may know, there is a smaller star, what you know as a white dwarf, also related to that star, affecting our gravitational field. And so we had to learn to work in different densities. And before we were able to actually allow other species to visit us on our planet, we had to do quite a lot of exploration of the physical dimensions. So there was partly an accommodation taking place where we created certain types of terraforming in order to accommodate the Lyrans on our planet. But it was also for them an opportunity to bring some of their homeland onto our planet. You should not despair over this period. At that time, the Lyrans also began exploring other star systems, but it is true that they did on our planet set up a type of headquarters, a place where they could find refuge. And so we would simply ask you, is there anything specifically regarding this
Yes.
scenario? Yes.
Yes, specifically, I believe that I was one that was there, and that I came to Sirius, and it was told to me that I was a record keeper of Sirius. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, we sense there are certain things in it. No, it is quite distant. So the information we are able to retrieve for you is spoken in spatial terms. You could think of it as we come from the ninth dimension, and so we have access to the all-knowing Akashic archives of the universe. But it would be in a sense as if I was to try to receive what went on in the head of a certain scribe in the library of Alexandria 2100 years ago. That is to say, it is not something that I have any connection to in my own personal experience. And it was something that took place within the Lyran enclave. So what we are getting and what is being transmitted to us is that in this function, what you did was in many ways to keep a type of holographic chronology of what had. So you are a type of chronicler of history, and what transpired was that you wrote down the history not only as you remembered it, but also adding in the oral recollections of the landscape of that planet you came from. And those were some of the things you explored in that lifetime. But we would still say that we would offer you that do not necessarily delve too much into these experiences if they come at the price of living out your human existence. We would always like to remind people, as we are star beings ourselves, that this is the place where you want to be. And the reason we find it so delightful to connect to you human beings is because even though you don't always take immediate pleasure in your own experiences, we take very great pleasure in it. We are thoroughly enjoying, loving, relishing this interaction because we get to experience what it is for an oversoul that is communicating to us to also see itself through a human perspective and then interact through us and have that interaction. And that's enriching our experience. So we will just simply ask you then, when you build the mythology of your oversoul, always try to think of how is it relating back to that situation where I find myself now, because that is the important, that is the treasure, that is the gem in the treasure trove or the pearl in the oyster. That is where you are right now, blessed Kate.
Thank you so much, because I was just wondering about the relativity of that life into my 3D life this time. So
yes, that is exactly a sweet question, because we sense it is mostly connected in your it is mostly connected in that sense that you are living out an archival ambition in this life too, and you know that we brought that image of the scribe that we brought forward is also connected. So in many ways, it's your need to keep record that is coming forward through this life, and your need to ask us about it, and therefore, what it is teaching you is that the record keeping, it is something that you can have confidence in your skill in doing, and that nothing is lost, that everything that needs to be conserved is conserved and is brought forward into the future to be utilized by those people who will do it. So be not afraid that that the information won't get to the right places, because the universe is one big space of traveling information getting to all the right places.
Yes. Do I have a guide from Sirius?
Well, yes, we will encourage you to rotate the questions, and then
Yes.
we will come back and answer this in time, and the guide will be ready to greet you. So look forward to that, sweet Kate. We bless you very much and look forward to answering your question later in this session.
Yes, hello. Okay. Alexandru wants to ask a question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Alex, or Alexandru.
Yes, blessings, Alex.
I am very grateful to have this opportunity. I have heard from other sources that it would be possible for us as humans to get more in touch with our microcosmos, our internal organs and cells and things going on inside our bodies. And I was wondering if that is true, and if it is, how can I get started doing that?
What a wonderful, wonderful question, Alex. We thank you so much for it, because it allows us to illuminate something essential about humankind. You point to exactly that image, that it is strangely enough not immediately accessible to your experience, that inner universe of microprocesses, but that universe is at least as large as the outer universe that you perceive us as coming from. But we also mastered this, meaning that becoming light, we actually became able to, before that stage, we became able to illuminate ourselves from within. And to us and to many enlightened species, we consider consciousness a type of light. And so you can begin by perceiving your consciousness as a physical entity, which is actually, it actually is, it has a physical vibration. And in a sense, much as you could perceive your thoughts emanating from your brain with a specific frequency, it is actually also a specific frequency of your being that makes your brain emanate and your being light up. And so if you envision yourself as a point of light, and when you come closer to that point of light, you see it becomes structured. It becomes a type of, we believe the term might be dodecahedron, so a 12-sided three-dimensional cube. And you see this in miniature vibration, in miniature size. And in there, you then pack your entire consciousness. This is your consciousness, but it becomes sealed within that vessel of that cube. And then you take that cube and you send it with your attention into that place where you want to go. And do this with closed eyes, and your visual cortex will begin to receive images of where you are in your body from within, and you can then scale it down so you can go into even the minutest levels, that is to say, even into your DNA, and begin to actually see how some of this sequence is alive and conducing code, and some of it is dark and inactive. And when you are on this point, floating there as a miniature cube of radiant light, you can begin to emit consciously light into those places that you want to illuminate. And you will perhaps feel it, if you look at it from a macro level, simultaneously as a type of jittery sensation, as something moving itself for wanting to pleasantly just, yes, do a little electric release. That is a way you can enter your bloodstream, or you can enter your bones, or whatever you wish to choose. It's a quite helpful way to do it, and we're so happy to offer you this technique, because we sense it will help not only you, but many who listen to this message.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And our blessings to you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay. I think they're quiet in the Zoom room, so I'll just go over to the YouTube. It's Kevin Rickard again.
Yes.
He says, this is interesting. Okay. I will be interacting with the Kambo frog medicine tomorrow. It is a deep cleaner for the physical, mental, and emotional bodies. Could the Sirians come through tomorrow with the frog medicine for me? And also, could you comment from your perspective what Kambo does for a human being on a multi-dimensional level?
Yes. This is also a lovely question. And behold, we give to you the perfect image of the permission slip, because it is also always so interesting for us and all of our star brethren to experience the human perception of time, because of course we will come through and we will be there. We are always there for you. We always lend our love. So you can simply just ask for us and we will be there. But what you are doing now with this permission slip is that you are manifesting this much stronger in that experience that you are about to undertake. You are manifesting our healing energy and guidance much stronger, because you are pronouncing it and you are letting it be spoken in a collective space, and you are of course allowing for our energies to beam out and touch you already now, because we will be there tomorrow. And especially your Sirian guide, Amlamintung, he will be there, and he will have a type of energetic lesson for you. You speak of what this ceremony does. It is a type of energetic revamping of your system. So this is, in many ways, you could think of it as a emetic for the energetic body. That is to say, it is common when people are suffering from certain ailments that they will ingest something such as ipecac, and then they will throw up on purpose. And so Kambo in many ways furthers this reaction, but on an energetic plane. So it is in many ways, it dissolves that block between your energetic body and your physical body. And when that sort of buffer state is dissolved and you are brought into that state, then the higher emanations of your spiritual body wants to actually release all the poisons within your system. And so it begins, and how the body releases poisons is by vomiting, by sweating, by shaking, by hydrating, by these processes, and of course also by those regular processes of bowel movement and urination, but we do sense it actually releases and allows for all these basic type of healing functions within your body to come to the forefront and then also be reactivated, so they remain stronger. And that means that you are able to also better fend off other threats against your immune system in the future. And you will also have an easier time when suffering from regular illnesses to actually expunge them from your energetic body, because that will be purified. So it will be easier for you to heal and regrow from that. And we do sense that you will have an interesting experience. And we would simply offer the advice to also take it easy on yourself. Take it easy, but most of all, take it easy on yourself for the past 3 or for the following 3 days, because there is a period of rebirthing there, where some unpleasant stuff that has been brought up in your physical body will begin to manifest as thoughts. And these thoughts are coming up to be released, as you know.
Okay. Okay, Laura, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
My love and gratitude to you. This is Laura.
Yes, thank you. A pleasure to meet you, Laura. Our love and gratitude to you too. Thank you. Many blessings.
Thank you very much. I was listening to you and had kind of a wonderful synchronicity in the context of oneness. Talk about how, with our oversoul, we can have, like within the oversoul, there's many soul extensions,
Yes.
and that any one of those soul extensions can ascend. And at the same time, heard about a local woman here that had brutalized and tortured and ultimately murdered her stepson, and the father knew about it. And I was trying to practice sending love rather than my hatred and abhorrence towards
Yes.
the act to her. And in the suddenly feeling that, as you were talking about some parts being able to ascend and help the others, and realizing that she quite literally could just be not just in a broad scope part of me, as we are all each other, but quite literally part of my soul, oversoul, that did this thing. And
Yes.
it just made it much more personal, real, not so much of an intellectual exercise, but a really feeling, sending the love for her healing. And it's made me wonder what happens when a piece of an extension of the oversoul ascends. Do oversouls incarnate? And what is the interplay? As my sense is that in some ways we start to become collective in our experience of life. And so if you can speak to us about that.
Yes. We thank you for sharing that story. We believe it is in many ways so illustrative of that practice of love, as it is truly understood and felt in human beings, not as that thing that Hallmark cards also speak of, and cheesy love songs. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what you are touching upon is the figure of transcendental love, that great force that actually upholds and explains everything. And what you are pointing to is that the oversoul, once it begins, we believe we had actually used the image, or the image has been we sense it's the Arcturians that have delivered this, but the image of the disco ball of the oversoul. But so you could think of it as that mirror orb that reflects light into certain points in infinite space, and somehow that ray of light also extends back to that infinite orb, which is the oversoul. And once it is touched by clear illumination, it is as if that entire space that surrounds the oversoul is somehow alighted, and then it experiences in all its manifestations not only itself in some of these separate beings, but actually in that more collective emanation you speak of. And that is what you are connecting to. We sense that, well, what you are pointing to about you being part of the same oversoul is it is that karmically you are quite far connected from this person. We would also reassure you. And that is in many ways also, of course, why you are having an experience where something like that is something that's so irregular and fills you with abhorrence. But then what you touch upon is exactly that, well, she is essentially you, that same kernel of the highest image of man, of perfect man or woman, of the perfect human being. It is something that you both share, and that in a sense your illumination as a human being can never be quite complete when there is still that other being, that place in space, suffering so deeply in their sense of lack and hurt and confusion that they perpetuate this and make it worse and take it out on others. And the only thing that can actually restore this is exactly that attitude that you present, this sense of loving understanding where to a situation where it was perfectly missing. And what happens is that when you think of that, it actually, you could think of it as that soul pattern or that soul trajectory that's running through that woman. It's somehow, it's touched by the opportunity to become something else. And it's, of course, though not impossible, highly, highly unlikely that this being will turn into what you may think of as a saint, or become illuminated by the love of the beyond in this life. But there is a type of turning back simply by someone offering love to that. It becomes possible, you could think of it, for that spirit to climb its way back out of hell and into the light that you are offering it a glimpse of. And therefore this is truly such a beautiful thing to do. And you may also notice we will thank you for it very much, because it is important, and we also sense it is healing other beings in this moment that you share it. But it is interesting that when you touch upon this love, you also sense that it is actually rewarding. It is the ultimate win-win in that sense, that you are, by meeting that evil with compassion, you are also sheltering yourself from that evil and growing that sense of understanding and connectivity within yourself.
Thank you for that so much.
Thank you very much for such a beautiful question.
Okay, are there any more in the Zoom room that want to ask questions? Because I've got a few in the YouTube. Okay, I'll go to the YouTube. It's a question here from Flower City Hemp Co. The question is, do our souls or essence exist on multiple dimensions at once? And many humans, and are humans just a slice of the total?
This very short answer that you know in your hearts to be true to both of those questions are yes. But we do sense, of course, that there is a paradox because, of course, when we are in the realm of time as we experientially find ourselves, and it's always interesting, it's so long since we left it, so it's so interesting for us to reconnect to beings being there. You are, in that sense, of course, not everything at once. The idea that the thing that you are right now is somehow limited by not being all those other things. But yes, in the view of Source and in our perception, all those experiences are feeding into you. So you are more like a type of maze of jewel encrusted circuitry that runs the currents and codes from Source into different experiences simultaneously. And that is also why you have that idea of timelines that we know have been introduced to you from different sources. And you could think of it that since you are existing simultaneously on all these timelines, and since there are many aspects of your soul already illuminated, for instance, in those illuminated counterparts of you living in ascended alien races, they touch upon your energy field, but you will sense in the realm of time that the more you connect to them, the more you shift into an experience, or you shift that point of attention, which is actually you, that loving point of creative attention. You shift that into experiences where you can recollect far more of that reality, and where you feel connected to far more of it, or where you also feel you can integrate far more of those more disparate realities where you find yourself separate as a being in time. So yes, you are having all these experiences immediately, and you can instantaneously connect to them and shift from timeline to timeline. But a great part of the human passion is that you live this type of slice experience, and so you are exactly a slice of the whole. It's a very beautiful image, because notice that when you remove that slice from the pie, then the slice becomes its own thing, and it's actually the thing that you're more engaged with the direct enjoyment of the pie, of the slice of pie, than you are with the pie, which is more like a visual backdrop. And that is in many ways also how your lives appear to you. So they are so engaging that you, from a spiritual perspective, savor them deliciously in small moments. And so that entire pie out there in the back, which is your entire soul collective or family, or that universe of beings and creation you actually are, that seems more like a backdrop to the concrete enjoyment of being that particular being which you are right now. So we just it's just so lovely that human beings exist, and that you are discovering in the way you are. We truly very much enjoy it, and we know we underline it a lot this evening, but it's so pleasurable for us to feel that the creation we make together is something that hasn't been seen before in hyperspace, and that is somehow bringing both our collective and your own human oversoul collective back to an remembrance of their connection to the whole of the entirety.
Okay, I have just one more questions from YouTube, and then we'll come back to the room.
Yes.
And this question is, it's a lady, she goes, my name is Alison Anderson from San Jose in California. I would love a blessing, especially and how do I heal my heart with the abortion that I had?
Yes. We are very happy to offer her both, and we will do so in reverse direction. So first we will say our condolences and know that we come from the image of time. We came from the image of timelines, and you can console yourself by reminding yourself that any being that materializes, that becomes present, or that is born, is meant to be here. And then any being that isn't is not. That's not to say that we recognize the loss of this, and we recognize the sorrow that it has planted in your energetic body. And we will say that you can begin to alleviate this by feeling there is different things feeding into this hurt of the heart, because there was also a point in a former life where you were skewered through the heart in this right side. And so if you actually allow yourself to center your attention around the right side of your chest, you will feel there is a type of tension there. And that tension is in many ways the place where the isolated pain above this pleasant experience is reconnecting with the experience of your abortion you have had in this life. And we will remind you that what happened was in many ways that you fulfilled your soul contract by having this abortion, that it is for some beings, and we know this sounds quite strange to humans, but they will sometimes use those incomplete human pregnancies as way stations on their different travels throughout the stars in the multiverse. And there is a karmic allowance of this for those who, for instance, it is more pronounced in stillbirths, where there will actually often have been a period where the spiritual life centered around that life that wasn't to be became very vivid. And this can be hard to swallow. So therefore, we simply remind you that it was with guiding love that this happened, and that you do not need our or anybody's forgiveness, but we would allow you to remind yourself that you have your oversoul's forgiveness, that you have not done anything wrong, and that you are progressing in the direction that you are supposed to. And notice often how great grief opens the heart. And so that grief was another lesson that you attracted through this experience, to be able to feel the pain and sorrow of incarnation and then release it in your own existence into something that actually flowers and receives the sunlight of love. And the blessing we will partially offer to you, that we sense you would actually very much enjoy the game of, doing the prayer mudra or hand pose on your back. And for some people it is easy. The humanoid we are coming through has sort of long arms, so he's usually able to do it, but it's simply that, and it can feel quite hard. But if you actually allow yourself to melt into that, then it will become easier for you to open for the currents of both pain and love in your life. That's the advice we offer you, and then we give you a blessing and a prayer in one, and we will transmit it in a type of echolation first. So remember that you are not in life, but you are life itself. And life is something that grows and proliferates, that nourishes and feeds everything. It is that important kernel of truth hiding within your heart that is beginning to grow into a large tree of oranges, and those healing oranges that grow from that tree blossoming from your heart, those you can pick and savor, and they will heal you and help the energies of abundance, of allowance, and of healing love to enter into your life. Blessed are you, sweet star sister.
Okay. Anyone from the Zoom room want to ask questions?
I would ask one more, if I may.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Um, are there Sirian and energies that are working with my son, helping him with the ideas that his name is Aaron?
Yes. Yes, there are. There are quite a few. He's very receptive to us, and again, it's this type of microcosmic exploration. So we sense that he's also invested in understanding the minute details of the physical world and the substratum of, you could, well, it's the layer you also know as superstrings, but it's the type of potential reality before things become separated into timelines. And he's very much being guided. And we sense right now there is it's a presence. Simla is the name, Simla, we call her. And she's a female energy, but it's interesting because she's sort of related to our ancient pantheon. So there were civilizations in our ancient days also that worship different deities that, of course, were shaped in our image. And this Simla is very much connected to the deity you know as Athena. So she's inspiring him, and she's very much communicating, and you could think of it as blue hexagonal patterns, so complex geometry, because we sense that his mind has an affinity for, we would say, abstract envisioning is a way to say it. So in a way, an ability to perceive physical reality that is there, but that is more than physical reality, that is transmuted into the abstract, and then brought into an understanding, and then actually used to change the physical universe. So yes, that is something, and we are very happy with the work he's carrying out.
I'm very grateful to you all for assisting him. My love to you. Thank you.
Our love to you. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few questions, but I'll wait till the end. Kate, I believe you wanted to know more about your guides, if you like.
Yes.
Salish, I was just wondering if I had aspects of myself left on Sirius as well as the guide from Sirius, if I may.
Yes, you most certainly may, sweet Kate. Thank you so much for asking your question again. And you see, now it unfolds nicely, because now we are bringing in the entire family from our own incarnational cycles. You have a guide here. He calls himself Unglungatoq. So you could think of that as a K, an L, a U, an M, an O, a Q, a T, an I, and a Q. Unglungatoq. And yes, he's guiding you. It's interesting. He has what's he doing? Well, he's a type of yes, he's a type of accumulator of waste. But what he's doing is it's akin to what you know as we know it became quite. It might be known as junk art. That sense we believe it was perhaps mainly in the 70s and 80s, but the type of sculptural art and installations that were made from discarded materials, often garbage and other things. And so this is what he does, but he works more in a sweet synchronicity. You see the illumination in why these questions have to be timed as so, because he's working with collecting discarded codes. In our ascension process, there was the time when we wanted to transform ourselves into light. And so there were certain genetic codes that have remained inactive in the individuals on our planet. And so we just sort of separated them out. But he was instrumental in collecting them and making this type of, so you see the sense of the archive again, this type of archive over them. And so a lot of these codes have been reused, and some of them have been actually reused here on planet Earth. So for instance, in some of the ways that you relate to whispers and the phenomenon of, we believe it's perhaps called ASMR, or those types of soothing vibrations. That's actually something that we have lent into this code because it needed to be further explored in a different species, and you volunteered. So that is a part of your Sirian counterpart. And he's feeding into your system right now because you are, again, it's the sense of the archive, but it's also the sense of, there's the saying of one man's trash is another man's treasure. So the ability to discover something that isn't necessarily inherently full of worth, and then turn it and arrange it in a way that all of the sudden shows its immediate qualities to others. That is something you are working with, exploring, and that he's lending his help to.
Oh my goodness. So that's the reason everything's going on all at once, all this different. And okay, I get that. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Our blessings, many blessings from the Sirian star system. And we thank you for undertaking this task, both spiritually and in your present incarnation.
Sorry, Alex, would you like to go next? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Greetings. My name is Alex.
Yes.
I have a question. Well, I think it's a big one. So, if the creation is a cake in a making, yes.
Yes.
It must be in a form, and the form must be in the oven, and the oven must be in the kitchen, right? So, what you, Sirian, found out about that?
Yes. We know this is interesting, and it's a very good question, and we thank you for it, because see, we believe that this problem in philosophy is known as the problem of originality, the idea that, well, if someone created creation, then who created the creator, and then who created that person? But understand that the cake is its own shape. That's essentially what we have found out. So the cake is constantly growing and changing size, and so that there's not necessarily anything surrounding it. What's surrounding it is essentially the principle of existence. So the framework in and of itself is, or the shape is in many ways invisible. It can't be touched because it also changes shape with the shape of the cake. So it's a type of, so the shape is in many ways, you can think of it as nothingness. And we know this has been, especially in Buddhism and or phenomenology, there is this idea of everything touching up upon nothingness and then receiving meaning from it. And that is, in a sense, what gives shape to the universe. It is that principle of something existing, or yes, the existence of non-existence, or the shape of the shapeless. And you will inevitably wound up in paradoxes when you deal with this, because it is not something that can be expressed sequentially in human language. But therefore we would simply remind you that you are both the kitchen, the baker, the cake, and the shape. Those are actually all components of you, essentially, in your highermost, innermost form. Because as it is thought of in that image of God, which was developed in some religions, you could actually perceive the shape of the universe as a self that is something that is contained and reflecting and understanding of itself and changing and developing through that process. And therefore, that is not a bad metaphor. But of course, if you then begin to believe that the universe is that God is a person, and therefore people who seem to perceive it otherwise, they need to get it right, or they'll have to pay. That's of course not the consequence, because you could just as meaningfully, as has also been done, describe it as a sort of unity of energy. But both things are true, and the image of personality is, in a sense, the image that all shapes have, and that is also why you are able to channel us in that sense.
Okay, so the creation is in the suspension in a void, right?
Yes.
I see. So it can be a black hole, but it's not. It's a dynamic, something dynamic that sustains that in the void, right?
Exactly, because the black hole is, from our perspective, more of a reality that is so dense or so different in its vibration that it opens up, in a sense, a portal within your density to something that isn't able to really register. And so the simple paradox in the image that you use and is that the void isn't actually there. So it's there to describe the space, but it is only there as an abstraction that is taking place within that space.
Well, so we live in the mind, in a dream.
Yes, in a sense.
Well,
but since the dream is never ending, you will never awake from it.
yeah, I understand. Even you grow from like humans to third dimension.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for allowing us to shed light on that.
Yes, hello. Okay. We have a couple more questions from YouTube, but before then, I think Alexandru has a question from the Zoom room.
Yes.
Hello again. Thank you for the opportunity again. I have a question about nutrition. I see a lot of people that are into spirituality and raising their vibration, start eating less and less and more raw foods, more as much as so basically in my perception they tend to eat less and more veggies, more caloric, less calories, less proteins, and so forth. And one of my objectives is to increase my muscle mass.
Yes.
So I have this objective in the physical realm, you could say, to increase my muscle mass. And our studies show that we need a certain amount of proteins in order to optimize muscle gain. And I was wondering if this could at one point interfere with my desire to elevate my frequencies and accomplish other spiritually inclined things.
Yes. We thank you for that question. And it is again a very interesting question seen from our perspective, because we are also trying to work out to understand that for human beings you are so very conscientious to us. That is to say that you actually often give yourself a hard time about not being able to fulfill all your aspirations. And to us, these things are perfectly linked, that it will actually be good for you to increase your muscle mass, because what you point to is also sometimes what happens is that when you heighten your vibration, you can tend to get ungrounded. And so it can actually be very, very healthy to sometimes ingest heavy foodstuffs or something that will also remind you that you are in a body, and that body is made out of the elements of Mother Gaia, and needs to sustain itself with ingesting things from that point. And so from our perspective, there is not necessarily anything wrong with eating meat. There is just something detrimental to not doing things consciously and then experiencing the adverse effects as a surprise. So even eating meat can be a beautiful celebration of the life that you have taken and that you have been allowed to take. So that's simply to say that it is actually, and we sense in your case, good for you to build your muscle mass, because it also furthers that sense of empowerment, that sense of being grounded, of connection to your body, of being physically capable and well coherent within yourself. And that's very healthy, and that won't block your, you could say, of course, and we know that we are teasing you somewhat, because of course if you got into heavy bodybuilding and taking steroids and blowing up your heart, that would probably not be good for opening yourselves to the more subtle qualities of your being. But that's not what you're looking for. What you are looking for is actually that feeling of, you could call it potency in its most positive form. So the sense of being really a capable vessel also in your physical manifestation. And that's a very good place for you to connect to the spiritual aspirations and energies too, because you will actually feel that there is no conflict between that, but that the more healthy you feel, the more you will also project that type of confidence that will be comforting both to yourself but also to your immediate environment, and that will attract far more of also positive spiritual content into your life.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and our blessings to you in this and in all endeavors.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 questions from YouTube. I hope that's okay.
Yes, that is perfectly all right. They are welcome.
Okay, the first one is from Jennifer Cabral,
Yes.
and she says, "You are the ultimate water beings. Can you explain our interior liquid nature and how the cerebral spinal fluid enlace our internal organs and help us create memories of our experiences on this planet?"
Yes. This is a very beautiful question. What you will discover towards the end of this century is the ability to store memories into water molecules. That is to say that water carries with it a sense of deep quantum entanglement. A water molecule has the remembrance of where all its subatomic particles have been in the ocean and what other parts they connect to and what other parts they connect to in this deep, interwoven, inseparable network of flowing molecules. And this is what sustains life basically on this planet. This is the simple pattern that moves energy in a type of current that is able to sustain cellular existence. That is to say, in a way you could think of, and we know this is sort of counterintuitive, but as the water as a type of electrical conductor, though it would be wrong to describe the vital energy flowing through you as electricity, it is more a type of, yes, elan vital. We believe there are different words for it, or the prana, the universal energy. But the way that both your planet and your body is built to facilitate this, and notice the proportional distribution of water to solid, both in your body and on your planet. This is connected to the idea that in many ways your cells are islands, and they are actually sort of their own entities that relay messages to each other through that current pulsing through you. And so the cerebral spinal fluid is a type of concentrated liquid. It concentrates spirit in that it's able to conduct far more subtle vibrations. It's a type of conductor of rainbow energies. You could think of it as a multidimensional fluid that is kept sacred within your spinal cord in order to insulate and isolate the most sacred and fundamental parts of your physiology related to your personality from too many fluctuations that that is experienced, for instance, in the more etheric realms. So there is a type of very stabilizing factor. And we would also point to that a mirror image in the cetaceans is, we believe it is perhaps called ambergris in English, that special type of crystalline salt-like oil that stems from the inside of the skull of sperm whales, and that has that same function of being able to capture very, very subtle vibrations, not only through the sense of echolation, but also from other spiritual beings. And so the whales too keep an eye on the dog star, and the whales too receive our energies and our guidance and track their migration patterns also from our light in the sky. Yes, we thank you for that question. And we would here believe there might be more questions for us.
Oh, yes, hello. I forgot to unmute myself. I'm talking to myself here.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Oh, God. Yes. You heard me talking in the ethers. Okay.
Yes, but it is easier to understand when it is heard through the ears too.
Okay. Actually, there's two questions left here on YouTube, and I'll go next, I presume. Okay, this is from Karina.
Yes.
She says, "Hello, beautiful beings. This is Karina here. I would like you to dive deeply into the meaning of the shadow self and how we all will be integrating this aspect." And goes on saying, "Becoming light and dark question mark. Thanks."
Yes. It is a good question, and it is in many ways an essential question, because of course you could say, by logical definition, that the shadow self is always that part of you which isn't conscious. But then again, your collective selves and the collective consciousness of your species also has a shadow. And often it is thought of as the darkness. It is those things that happen that are taboo or unspoken of. It is those urges within the human heart that are destructive or aggressive, or in other ways not necessarily in accordance with that vision of yourself also as loving beings. But notice that the shadow self is always active, and it is the most active when it is not acknowledged, as was understood in your and is understood in your psychotherapy. So that is to say, as we were introduced to in that story that Laura related to us, you see the shadow self, our shadow self, is often mirrored back to us in other people's. And essentially, this happened in all races when they were on that exploration of the individualistic energies. That is to say that not only do you all contain the negative shadows of your collective selves, but you also find your individual selves containing specific configurations of this and mirroring them back to them. And therefore it can be so difficult, because when you, for instance, have explored the experience of being a loving mother and then being confronted with someone who are exactly the opposite, this of course brings back the dark mirror image. But the dark mirror image can't really threaten you unless you expunge it or try to make it into something else, or try to meet its own wish for destruction and its own request for misery and punishment by actually honoring that, by allowing that to it. So the interesting thing is that many of these shadow sides or energies can actually be seen as crippled power. That is to say that when you begin to integrate the light and the dark within your being, you will begin to realize that actually the dark is the ability to actually step into existence, to allow yourself to fulfill yourselves, to actually allow yourselves to somewhat uncompromisingly express those things that are true within you, to speak your truth and to allow it to be heard, to share your visions of the world, to point to those places where you yourself have made mistakes, and have the assurance that sharing that with people will also allow them to admit to themselves and to others their own imperfections and places where they have been, well, not the best that they could be. And there you will discover that integrating the dark actually becomes far more immediate, because many of these impulses, they only turn shadow-like, and they only become very destructive once they're not honored as what they actually are, which is the natural striving for power and satiation within that experience of being a physical body and a physical human being. And those things can be, we use the term sublimated, but in a positive way. That is to say, they can be harnessed And what, for instance, is realized in that system of Tantra is that many of these dark energies of the material world are actually, in their purest form, simply pure energy. And so they can be transmuted into a spiritual process. And that is what we are saying, so that in instance, the process of forgiveness, of understanding, and of constantly reminding yourself that those people who act from the dark or seek to silence others, they are acting from a place of hurt, and that hurt can actually be healed by allowing the darkness to be what it is instead of suppressing anything. And we thank you for that beautiful question and bless you many times.
Okay, let me see if I can get your name right. Unglungatoq.
Yes, Unglungatoq. Yes.
Unglungatoq. Okay. Now, please guide me in the sense, because I have still got two more questions. YouTube, another one from Zoom. If you'd like me to carry on, just tell me, sir.
Yes, that is perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I will finish off with the two YouTube first and then come back into the room.
Yes.
Okay. First one is, I've lost it. Oh, yes. It's from the Flower City Hemp Company again. Could you discuss the idea of unfailing love and how we can use this as a tool in this reality?
Yes. And you see, we have pointed to this in different ways, and we are approaching. And the easiest way for you to approach this is actually to center yourself on the vibration that we leave you with, and all of you with this night, because it is the vibration of universal love. And that vibration of universal love also manifests itself as, in some ways, the idea of power, or the idea of energy creating itself constantly in the universe, the cake baking itself. So we are using all those images simply to point to that when you see things shifting, or when you see things changing, or when you see shapes becoming one or another, or human beings colliding in conflicts of interest, the love is always hiding there, because the love is the pattern that sustains these things. It's simply the vibration that are bringing both things into existence, and it is allowing them to have that experience. And so when you turn your attention to the idea that you are simply source walking itself home, so you are trying to, in any manifestation, actually connect to a different vision of love. And in that vision of love, however grim it may seem, you are discovering the opportunity to uncover that which is undying in its vibration, both, and universal in its vibration, both within you and in that situation. And that is the deepest resonance pattern. That is the frequency of being before it turns into anything else. So in a way, you could think of it as a very, very high-pitched sound that then differentiates itself in order to become heard and understood as spoken words and languages and dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As one from Ketul Shah,
Yes.
how is it determined when and how much guides interfere in our life?
Yes. It is, in that sense, determined by how you focus your attention, and how you focus your attention then directs your vibrational expansion or shutting off in different directions. So in a sense, as anything exists simultaneously, you are constantly connecting to everybody, but you will sense this interference, or this, let us say, introduction of your guide's energy and guidance and personalities and inputs into your conscious experience. you will experience this the more you begin to connect to your sense of inner meaning, which is again this vibration that we're pointing to, that the more you align with that high vibration, that thing that's somehow there behind everything, just radiating a pure joy that is so inexpressibly high that it can't do anything but dance the dance of all creation. That's in many ways, when you begin to align with that, it will begin to manifest in your experience as some of those guides, some of those visions of your eternal nature returning back to you. But in a sense, even if you are in, and let's not go into the darkness, but even if you are in the position of the abused stepson, your guides is in many ways guiding your spiritual progress, but it's not being fed into the conscious experience, and the pain is of course there, but even that experience is in many way regulated by the spiritual the spiritual police, so to say, or your spiritual comrades, or your star family, or your guides, because they are actually looking for even that negative experience to be something positive in the development of your oversoul, which they also belong to.
Okay, just one last one from YouTube.
Yes.
Okay, forgive me if I mispronounce the names here. It's Carol Lucy Lawty.
Yes.
Says, I have a friend. Her name is Andri N.
Yes.
She wants to know if she has any relation to me in the time of Egypt when I was Queen Cleopatra II. And was she my daughter?
No. That is the swift answer. That no, that doesn't have any, that doesn't resonate in our perspective.
Okay. Are there any more questions in the Zoom before I ask any? Okay. For me,
Yes.
it's like I always seem to follow Kate. Do I have any Syrian guides or aspects working with me at this present moment?
Oh yes. There's it's interesting that the first image that was transmitted to us was the image of a diadem, and so maybe we are on a path here with the Queen Cleopatra, because we sense that you weren't the queen, you were the jewel maker. That's what's going on here. And so yes, this personality, but it's because it is a female energy, though the dimorphism of the sexes isn't that pronounced in our species. It is a female energy, and she calls herself Ilitrinuk. So an I, an L, an E, an T, an R, an I, an N, a U, and then almost a QK or KQ. So that sound. And she fashioned these very beautiful objects, and it was hard for her to sometimes you can grow so enamored with your creations that you have, that it's almost sad that you have to pass them on, and that somehow happened to her. So she's reminding you of your skill as a maker of objects, and we mean this also in a more abstract sense. So in the sense that you're good at producing ideas and bringing them forward and connecting them to people, but there is also the need to then just allow these ideas to live their own life and sever the connection to them, and that is in many ways what she's teaching you.
Okay, that was for Carol. Now for Salish.
Yes.
Okay, for me, like I said earlier on, just like Kate, I would love to know if I have any Syrian guides and aspects working with me at this present moment.
Yes. Oh, what is this coming forward? It's a path of red light for some instance. Yes, this energy, the personality, he calls himself Maklamtok. Maklamtok. Toq. And what is it he's doing? He's paving. He's paving roads for some instance, which is strange because we didn't actually use roads in our modes of transportation that often, because at the densities of our planet, we used to levitate a lot. So it's interesting that the thing he's building is a kind of a star bridge. It's a way to launch things into space. It's a way to make sure to bridge the gap between the worlds, and he has a sort of forceful energy. So there's that sense of make way for this project, and he's offering you to also release that fierceness in it, that sense to pave that red road of passion, which is already extending from your heart and into outer space.
Okay, and the second one,
Yes,
is pretty, well, when does a soul actually occupy the fetus in a human?
yes. This is a very good question. And there are different perspectives on it, but we would go with that perspective we believe is also communicated in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is approximately 49 days after its conception. The soul will begin, it will tie that thread of life, leash of life, from the etheric down into the physical, and then it will begin to beam in. But then this process plays out in different parts, because in most fetuses who have the trajectory of actually becoming fully fledged human beings, they will begin to concentrate in a sort of, you could almost think of it as a distillation process, those experiences that need to, both from past lives and other lives, that need to accumulate into the energetic body as it generates and then begins to also shape the growth of the fetus. But in other cases, the fetus actually lends itself as a type of portal energy that can then allow for the access that we also described of different astral beings. And this can happen even though the person will actually become a human being. But in those cases, you will often, and this very much takes place with the Arcturians, for instance, but in those cases, you will often also experience individuals that have a reminiscence of something alien or strange about their energetic profile.
Okay, I'll just finish on this one last one. If you could sense, are you able to sense, because I've been very short of breath recently.
Yes.
And I know it's something to do with the energy that's around me,
Yes.
especially being my stomach and solar plexus. Are you able to comment on why this sudden shortness of breath? I'm having difficulty breathing over the last 3-4 days.
Yes. We sense actually a lot of it is you picking up on collective energy. So there is a tightening. You may actually know that that word anxious or actually means tightening. So the place over here that is known as Anglia, where England is named of, is the place where Europe tightens into the peninsula. And so there is this sense of constriction, and it's actually a type of, well, you're preparing yourself to release it, and we sense a good way for you to begin to release it is simply doing angel flaps with the arms, and there's not necessarily any need to jump in this, but just allowing yourself, thinking that in many ways actually the universal stretch is that which takes your arm out to both sides. So that is one of the elements, but another thing that is feeding into it is also what is this? We sense also that there might have been an increase in the amount of contamination or pollution, which is the word, of particles in the air in your local area recently these past days, and you're picking up on it because you're also quite sensitive, and your lungs are trying to expunge toxins not only from the environment but also from accumulated in this lifetime in general. So it's actually, notice, and this is the positive aspect of it, that it is pointing to you becoming more attentive of your breath, and that means that you can actually work on breathing differently. And we sense that, try to envision that that your throat is actually a tube, and then try to envision this tube slightly expanding for every time you breathe in. And it's not forceful, it's just that a little space simply grows within your throat and then down into your heart. And this will help redirect the process so it can turn you into that other place you are going with it, which is yes, better breathing, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Now, there are no more questions here on YouTube, and I believe there are none here in the Zoom room either. So thank you very much indeed.
We thank you also, and we bless you personally also, Salish, and thank you very much. And also we've sensed the channel is insisting on thanking you for excellent moderation and for all of you showing up. And as you know, we will, and I Unglungatoq of the Sirian collective, I will offer you a collective prayer in our language, and then I will translate it. You have experienced many things in your lifetimes, and you will experience many more. But the experience you are having now is that of connection. And that connection, it stems from the innermost, the smallest particles of your being, from those subatomic particles circling their course, turning into water molecules flowing through your bodies, becoming cells, structuring themselves into conductors of light, of meaning, of love. You are all that, and you are climbing from darkness and into an unfathomable light of love and serene blessings. Each and every one of you, we thank you for having been here, and we thank you for having opened your hearts to be touched by our energy as we were moved by yours. My blessings to you, our blessings from that star Sirius. Sweet, loving human beings, we will meet again. Farewell.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. Let's do them again some other time. Yeah, I really loved that personally. Just what a loving energy.
Yes, I'll have to re-listen to this because while I was moderating, I missed a lot of it, but that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but it really works smoothly on my end at least. So thank you so much for that, Salishan.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Anytime.
That's perfect.
It's beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Thank
And
you.
And 11/11 next Wednesday is up. Quanta will be there, so hope to see all of you. And just yes, it's Thursday today, so have a lovely Thursday night, whatever's left of it.
It's Skyfolks night, so we fireworks outside, so it's fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Okay, you get out and watch those lights go off in the sky.
Okay, thank you. See you on the 11/11.
See you on the other side.
You too.